did not go home.
Or did your father point a gun at you?
No, there's nothing else that I can say.
Then this is not going to end up the way you want to with what you're telling me right now.
He didn't cry. He didn't get angry. He didn't make any excuses. Just, there's nothing else I can say. But sometimes, silence is the loudest scream. This is not just a case, this is a warning for an era where the line between reality and fantasy is increasingly blurred. If you love in-depth criminal psychology analysis, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any truths hidden in seemingly absurd stories. Is Grant a victim of loneliness, of internet addiction, or is he a dangerous manipulator, ready to destroy the very people who love him the most? The journey from a young man living in a loving family to the biggest suspect of the investigation. Where to start? Grant Amato was born in 1989 and grew up in Florida in a stable middle-class family. His father, Chad, was a computer engineer. His mother, Margaret, worked in the medical field. His older brother, Cody, was a pharmacist, a family pride. Grant struggled more than he did. Although he studied anesthesia, he was suspended after stealing drugs from a hospital. With no job and no direction, Grant was left to fend for himself and began spending hours a day in a webcam relationship with a woman named Sylvie, living in Bulgaria. At first it was just chatting, but gradually Grant spent money on her. Not a small amount, more than $200,000, taken from his parents' accounts, his brothers, even his old student loans. The family finds out, conflicts begin, trust is broken, and that's when things start to slide. January 25th, 2019, things will never be the same again. On the morning of January 25th, 2019, Seminole County Police received an emergency call from the workplace of Cody Amato, Grant's brother. He did not show up for work, did not call, and was not reachable. When police arrived at the house, they found a chilling scene. Chad was slumped in the back shed. Margaret was found near the front door, and Cody in the bedroom, still wearing his headphones, had been shot in the head. There was no sign of forced entry, no struggle, no missing items. All three of the Amato family members died from close-range gunshot wounds, and the only person not present at the scene was Grant Amato. Grant is invited to work at the police station, but what awaits him is more than just a few routine questions. On January 26th, 2019, just one day after all three family members were found missing, Grant Amato was summoned to the police station for a statement. He was not arrested, he was not handcuffed, and he sat down in the interrogation room chair with a strangely calm demeanor.
You gotta walk through Coke or anything?
No. I'll hold off on that.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Eva.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm here.
His voice was calm, his eyes straight and unblinking, as if he were attending a job interview, not the most serious event of his life. Grant began recounting the details of the past few days. He said his father had kicked him out of the house 2 days earlier because he was still secretly communicating with Sylvie, a Bulgarian girl, via webcam, which his family strongly disapproved of.
When's the last time your dad put his hands on you?
The last time my dad put his hands on me would be kind of the middle of December of 2018. Because there was like that emotional connection, I guess you could say, between her and me. Like I like, you know, it felt like a relationship. You know, I didn't want to just stop cold turkey on it. His dad had kicked me out Thursday because I was still talking to the woman.
When asked where he was during the time his three relatives died, Grant said he slept in a store parking lot, then went to a DoubleTree hotel, and then stopped at a Panera Bread to connect to the Wi-Fi.
So then I'm only in Panera for like 10 minutes or something like that. And then I end up leaving from there, and then that's where I go to the DoubleTree, and then that's where I checked in. And then I was at the DoubleTree all night. With all the money that had been getting spent, and I guess just a mix of everything that I've been saying, just kind of boiling up in him.
Grant describes a time when his father lost his temper just because of money, and how people didn't understand that he had real feelings for Sylvie, that it was a relationship and not an illusion. During the interrogation, Grant rarely used the words my father, my mother, my brother. Instead, he used they, them, he, she. It was a manifestation of distancing language, an unconscious language to separate himself from the deceased and from guilt. When police asked about physical evidence, time of death, phone records, blood stains, Grant began to give vague answers, changing little details. He insisted he never went back to the house, didn't have a gun, didn't know what happened. But the surveillance cameras, phone records, and even strange blood stains on his clothes seemed to tell a different story.
When I had come back that other time, I crossed in front of the dude's fence, the red blinking lights ones.
What time was that?
I can't remember.
That was Friday during the day, when you said you were going to come back.
Right, yeah. I think that there was something that obviously happened at the house.
Tell me what happened.
I don't know what happened.
You just said it. You know something bad happened there. Out of your voice, not mine. I have not told you anything what happened there. Something bad happened. You've been here with us. You think something bad has happened at your house. And to date, so long, you haven't even asked us about anybody. Once a bomb goes off, you can't defuse it. You can't. That's already out there. Now is the point to say, how do I put Band-Aids on myself to minimize the injuries I have?
But Grant didn't confess. He stuck to his story. No tears, no apologies, just a long silence and a calculating look in his eyes. What Grant didn't say is what has psychologists asking the bigger question: is this a defense or a subtle manipulation?
When's the last time your dad put his hands on you?
The last time my dad put his hands on me would be because with the way that I was acting, he didn't see that I was doing anything for like the positive. You know, and a lot of it just came back to money with him. January 4th?
Did you agree to go?
I didn't, but they said that, you know, this was your only...
Who said?
My dad.
Okay.
And that was in Fort Lauderdale?
Yes, yeah.
Notice how Grant switches from my dad to he and then they. This is a sign of distancing language. When a person is guilty or feels guilty, they often distance themselves from the victim by using a distancing pronoun.
Sure. Like that. I had never, as embarrassing as it is, I'd never been on my own.
Right.
The longest period I'd ever been away from anybody is 2 weeks when we were up in Japan.
Before he uttered the word embarrassing, the corners of Grant's lips pursed slightly, and his eyes darted to the left, micro-expressions of defensiveness. Despite his modesty, his body betrayed his insecurity and avoidance.
So then I'm only in Panera for like 10 minutes or something like that. And then I end up leaving from there, and then that's where I go to the DoubleTree, and then that's where I checked in. And then I was at the DoubleTree all night.
The story is told in a smooth timeline with little pause and no emotion. This may be a sign of a scripted narrative, a story that has been prepared in advance in the mind. Innocent people often tell stories with intricate details, mixed with emotion, because they really remember. Liars reenact.
I think something happened at the house based on my knowledge right now, and you're afraid to say it. You're afraid to come back and say that I was a victim.
You already made the decision on whether or not they can live or not.
This is a manifestation of body blocking, a defensive posture as if trying to block the flow of information from the outside. The body freezes in the moment of being confronted with the truth, the classic reflex of fight, flight, or freeze.
Cody did not go home.
Or did your father point a gun at you?
No, there's nothing else that I can say.
Then this is not going to end up the way you want to with what you're telling me right now.
This is the key point. Instead of reacting strongly to being associated with the extreme plot, Grant simply responded in a short, silent voice. The lack of emotion in his response was out of sync with the seriousness of the question, suggesting that something was probably hidden. Every word he chose, every glance, every stillness. There was no direct evidence of a confession, but the body language and micro-expressions told a different story. A story that Grant may have tried to hide, but his own body betrayed him. Forensic evidence begins to mount, from phone records, time of death, and DNA at the scene. Can Grant's silence stand against all of that? Grant never officially admitted to his actions, but the evidence, from cameras, phone data, to bloodstains, paints a complete picture.
In the Circuit Court of the 18th Judicial Circuit in and for Seminole County, Florida, State of Florida versus Grant Amato, case number 1933 CFA.
It took the jury less than 8 hours to reach its verdict. Grant Amato, guilty of first-degree murder of 3 victims. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. No more webcams, no more fantasies, just silence, forever this time. Grant Amato, a man obsessed with virtual love, or a cold-blooded manipulator. There is no confession, only actions. So what do you think? What is the truth?